9/11 was a tragic, most heartbreaking thing any New Yorker can go through. I definitely felt like a piece of New York died that day.
It was terrible, but I couldn't really tell you that I knew what was going on at the time, but it was definitely bad.
You'll remember everything that happened that day because it was such a traumatic day for everybody. And what sucks is like it changed people, but not enough.
Not in the better.
Not enough.
Not at all.
It
no.
changed them for a certain amount of time. That's just about it. Once again,
Yeah.
You had to go back. You had to keep living. You had to keep thriving. You had to survive. People forget.
1999 was the end of the millennium. A slew of Armageddon movies were released to coincide with the end of the world, but a real threat was quickly approaching: Y2K. Supposedly, on January 1st, 2000, computer systems would change to 1900, causing a systematic crash, thus crippling humanity with the downfall of technology. Midnight passed without a glitch. Just goes to show, never trust the fanatics. But they do make for a good laugh.
It's January 1st, 2000, for Y2K, that big scare that was supposedly cause the end of the world with computers. It's around 10 in the morning. I'm on this train going to Manhattan, going to work. Obviously midnight passed, nothing happened. So I'm on here, there's maybe 5 of us on the train. We get around to where we are right now, and we start slowing down, and then we just come to a dead halt. The lights shut off, the heat shuts off, and those of us who are on the train are kind of like, okay. Somebody in the back yells at the top of his lungs, Y2K! And then like 2 seconds later, everything came back on and we started going. It's hilarious.
Thankfully, Y2K proved to be a false alarm. Unfortunately, there are dark moments that are all too real, such as the extermination of a race or the assassination of a president. On September 4th, 2001, I had a 9 o'clock appointment in the World Trade Center for my summer job. As I was leaving the towers, I remember thinking how beautiful the buildings were. Had I known that would be the last time I'd be there, I would have stayed a little longer. On September 11th, I was getting ready for an appointment downtown. I was listening to the Howard Stern show, when suddenly he screamed, "Oh my God, a plane just crashed into the World Trade Center." I thought this was a tasteless joke, so I switched the station, only to find the same story. Except by this time, the second plane had crashed into the towers. Then they announced the Pentagon was hit. As you can see on their faces, mentioning 9/11 still brings back bad memories. I am no exception. People used to ask me what it was like going through it. My response? Frightening. What else is there to say?
My family, they all come from India, and when they come here, all they can talk about is, where were you? How did it go? How was it? They only want to ask, what was the experience like? As a resident New Yorker, I was terrified. I was really young at the time when it happened, so all I can do is question what's going on. What's going to happen? Is this it? Is this my last day here? Am I never going to see anybody else again? I mean, the average New Yorker can tell you the same thing.
New York may have suffered the most damage, but the effects were felt around the country.
It's hard to talk about. I wasn't there. I didn't experience it firsthand, but I knew people who were there. At the time, I was in college doing my undergraduate degree at UNC Greensboro. Classes aren't canceled. We have to go to school. And being in music school, you know, people from all over the country were at my school, and I had several people who had family members that were in New York that they could not contact. I myself had family members who were traveling in New York and were supposed to be in the towers that morning. For whatever reason, their plans changed, and, you know, we were able to get in touch with them.
Chaos, confusion, fear. In theory, we understand these words. Most of us like to think we'd act in a noble fashion, but when you are suddenly faced with it, let's just say it's not like the movies. It's much worse.
I remember that I was working for Macy's at the time, and then they were like, "Yo, we're gonna go up to the roof." I still didn't know what the hell was going on, so we went up to the roof, and I remember being able to, you know, look across and see just smoke, and, you know, you could see like ashes that looked like a long cigarette, and then you start to see crumble, and a whole bigger plume of smoke, and it looked like, you know, there was like ash flowing all over the fucking place. It was dark and kind of gross, and
People that jumped out. That was creepy.
it didn't. Yeah, no,
Seeing
that was
people
gross.
holding hands and jumping out the window. You'll remember everything that happened that day because it was such a traumatic day for everybody. My aunt still covered in ashes because she worked right on Fulton, and coming to pick me up from school, she had to walk all the way to come pick me up. And it was weird because technically my school started around 9:30, and I usually always took the 2 and the 3 in World Trade Center. And that day, my grandfather drove me to school. So it was one of those moments of like, could have been a part of it, but every New Yorker was a part of it.
For 8 years, I avoided going to Ground Zero. I think I knew it would evoke all the thoughts and memories I'd rather not remember. But on September 11th, 2009, I went down to witness firsthand the ceremonial name-calling, and what I found was truly appalling.
It's 11:15 on Friday morning, September 11th, 2009. It's the first time I've actually come down here to see the name calling. And from what I saw on TV for the last 8 years, it's very difficult to believe that this has been gone. It was the one day of the year which New York City was truly nicer. It's a better place to live in. Everyone seemed to get along. I saw, walking down the streets, policemen and firemen huddled together, honoring the people who died so bravely. I saw people on the street crying from those friends and families whom they lost. I also saw a lot of New Yorkers saying, "Get the out of my way. What the hell is this all about? What the are you doing? Get out of my way." Today of all days, here of all places, I expect a little bit more. We have forgotten to be humble. We've forgotten about humility. It's sad, but it's no longer a memorial. People come here to be spectators. That's something I can't come through.
There's no doubt this attack changed America. Perhaps the most dramatic change occurred in New York. In an instant, Manhattan was no longer an island of individuals.
It definitely showed how vulnerable New York was in America as a country, but then it also exposed us to how we can band together through universal differences. But during that time, it was definitely like afterwards, it was a time of union and people looking out for each other and all that stuff. It was definitely sad that it had to take a tragedy of that scale in order for people to band together like that for New York, but I guess that's what it takes.
As year after year passed, 9/11 had become a way for people to make money. And I can't help but wonder, did we learn anything from this?
Tourists, you know, it's just another thing about New York to add onto their sightseeing. Honestly, they weren't here when these attacks happened. They don't know the fear, the panic, this frustration, all these feelings that one resident New Yorker can go through when you see something like that, when you have to go through something like that.
It's a marketing tool. I would say like everybody comes here, oh my god, look, this is where it happened, let me take pictures, click, click. It's very disgusting how people see it as something that we could put it on shirts and put it on structures and tattoo it on themselves and stuff like that.
I wish I could say that I think there's an increased sense of safety and urgency to protect people, but I don't. I think that that's something that they could develop You know, they have the if you see something, say something rule. And yet, I walked by several times, you know, bags sitting in the subway. Would I say something? Yes, I actually called. One day there was a bag sitting out in front of my store. So I called, you know, 311, say, hey, there's a bag, there's nobody around it, there hasn't been anybody around it. Did they come check it out? You better believe they did. But how many other people did I stand there and just in a space of a minute see walk by and say nothing, do nothing, not even take a second glance at it? And I'm sorry, you know, the whole point of history and the whole point of making mistakes is to learn from them. And if we can't take an experience as catastrophic and as devastating as September 11th and learn something from it, who are we? And why do we sit here and complain about things that happen and politicians and policies when we as people just sit back and do nothing?
Reality is a scary thing, and we tend to blind ourselves with movies, books, and video games, causing us to make the same mistakes again and again. But if we cannot learn from our turbulent history, then our species is destined to destroy itself.